Hey, welcome to Taylor's Trick Taking Table. I'm Trip Taking Taylor, and I went kind of around the world on a bit of a trick taking bender. I first went to Japan, Tokyo Game Market, and the next one was BGG-Con, so that'll be the next video. Kind of a back-to-back of sorts. In fact, I landed Sunday night from Japan, and I had like 6 hours or so until I flew off to Dallas-ish, kind of. I flew off technically to Chicago, and then I took a train down to Dallas, and I played trick-taking games on the train. It's like a trick train taking trip, and then I went to BGG-Con. So that'll be the next video, but this video, it's all about Japan, baby. It was a hoot of a time. It was the second time I went to Tokyo Game Market, but like kind of the first time I was in the know of how many trick-taking games were going to be there, which ones, you know, which booths to check out, and kind of just a little bit more in the know of designers and familiar faces and stuff. So it was great to go this time, as opposed to just when I went in 2019, where I was kind of like fumbling around and just like grabbing kind of random games that I was like, I think these are trick-taking, or kind of just like whatever I found or stumbled upon. Whereas this time, through the help of so many amazing people, I was able to find a great deal of trick-taking games, as you can see by the 2-bed taking up haul. I think I got like upwards of 50 plus or so trick-taking games, and just a crazy variety, and I'll hopefully try to cover those in videos moving forward. But before we get to the montage of the trip, followed by kind of final thoughts, I think what's interesting about Tokyo Game Market is you don't really play too many games. It's more of just kind of like a showcase, a lot of indie titles, indie tables. So the final thoughts, or kind of final thoughts of the trip, are going to be more about games I find and kind of just wacky stories around the con and playing games, you know, afterward at board game cafes or with random people I met during the trip. So it's going to be kind of a goofy one, as opposed to like when I did T7, that trick-taking con in Cincinnati. That's coming up soon. That one was more, these are the games I played, and it was kind of more of maybe an organized report of sorts. This one's going to be all over the place, kind of like this intro. Anyway, but before that, I wanted to say thank you to the bajillions of millions of amazing people who helped out and I ran into and met during this trip. First and foremost, James, Nathan, just a god among men, just the kindness. I think I say this in the final thoughts, which I filmed earlier, but I'd probably be dead in a ditch without him. And Ayako from Big Cat Games. You'll find out later how much she helped. Just like just the kindest soul. Just so many designers. Obviously, I met Taiki Shinzawa, which is like and Sai Beppu. Oh my gosh, and Trick Kuma. So much fun playing games with them. And Shari. Just too many names. Too many trips and too many names. Okay, before this starts to sound like an Oscars acceptance speech where the people in the audience have no clue who the person accepting the award is thanking, it's just like a list of names. They'll all make sense in the final thoughts. Just designers and people that I ran into and met and hung out with that were so interesting to pick their brain and also just like learn more about like trick-taking design, Japanese design, and things like that. Whew. Anyway, here's a montage that I'm sure editing Taylor has done an amazing job on. And hey, this is Normal Taylor. I just want to say this is not a normal video. Usually it's like I cover a game and how to play and thoughts on a trick-taking game. This is more of kind of a travel video. The next one as well about BGG-Con. Kind of just talking about trick-taking and at the cons I'm going to. So I'm sorry. I apologize. We'll get back to the regularly scheduled programming in a bit. But for now, back to the Japan vlog.
Puro
Alrighty. That was interesting. Well, again, the trip to Tokyo Game Market was just out of this world. So many amazing, kind people, and I can't say thank you enough to everyone. I'm sure through the rest of this video I'll explain in detail kind of how welcoming and just beyond helpful everyone was. The first thing I do want to point off, I have kind of a crazy haircut. I went to, on the last day, because I thought it'd be a funny joke, I went into a Japanese barber, and I put on my phone, can I have a haircut, please? And then, you know, as normal haircut barber interactions go, they were asking what I wanted, and I didn't quite get that far in my plan, so I just kept saying yes, which doesn't make any sense. But we got there. The barber kept asking questions, and I kept just saying yes, hi, and so this came out. So anyway, that's the haircut. So back to Tokyo Game Market. It was so good. So I couldn't leave America until Friday, and since Japan is ahead about 18 hours, 16 hours or something, I landed on Saturday at like 2 p.m. and the game market is from like 11-ish to like 5 p.m. And just a little bit of background. How it works is there's a bunch of booths with a ton of Japanese games, and you can either, you know, run around and just try to buy them, or oftentimes what the main thing you should do is you should get reservations. So on Twitter, or just kind of on the game market site itself, you can find out which games have reservations, and they use like Google Forms usually, and you can request certain copies of games, like certain amounts, and then the premise is you say you have a reservation, and then you buy it. So all that to say, I try to do as much prep ahead of time, but a lot of the reservations would just get released to open sale, and where they could sell it to anyone at around like that 2 or 3 mark, or even worse, a lot of times the booth was only there one day, Saturday. So I landed at 2 p.m. and I get into the taxi and I take it right there, and I'm running around, I'm like sprinting around like a madman. And on the plane ride before I landed, I essentially was writing down all of the, see if I can focus, all of the games I needed and their booth numbers. And it looks insane. And the worst part is, so it's already hard to read my handwriting, but when I had to write the booth numbers in, like, is it hiragana? Ooh, I wish I knew more Japanese. But essentially, the Japanese alphabet. I was trying to write it, and I just have like the world's worst handwriting. So I would write down a symbol, and I would confuse it on the floor. And so I would be running back and forth to like different booths and just always messing everything up. But I did manage to find most of them for the first day. I unfortunately missed out on a couple games, but overall it was a pretty good success. I got games like Conclusion, which is, if you've seen the video for Collusion, which is a David Parlett standard deck game, where the hook on that one is, if you haven't seen the video, it's a 4-player game, and the goal is you want to match the number of tricks you take with one other person, but you can say whatever you want. You can collude, right? You can say, I'm going to take 3. Are you going to take 3? You can kind of go back and forth. This is, it's a 3-player only game that's kind of, I think, was inspired by Collusion, and it's called Conclusion. So this is maybe just like a good example of what some of the other like trick-taking games I got at Tokyo Game Market are like. So the production, you know, it's just like a paper kind of perfectly sized box, and inside you just have, you know, numbers and suits a lot of the times. And this one actually has like a score pad, which is great. And then just the rules. I think a lot of times I'll take a chance on trick-taking games because often there's less language dependence. So, I mean, I can show you a good example of all the games I got from the first day. They're all they're mostly trick-taking games where, you know, suits and numbers, and I mean, this is a trick-taking channel. Another game I got was by the wonderful Sai Beppu. It was her tarot deck, where on the, you know, on the trump are these illustrations, and on the back also, ooh, just gorgeous, kind of like leaf. I always say mandala, but I don't know, kind of that effect. But my favorite part was the suits with these kind of like half light, half dark symbols. And then also, oh, just the best. The king, queen, chevalier, and jack also have the ranking to the side. And that kind of just helps so much with people like me, where I'm more used to standard decks, and I kind of don't know what, you know, like in a classic tarot deck, when I get dealt the R, I don't really know what that means. It doesn't like click in my head. So seeing like the king, and then also having to the left or the right the ranking of the face card helps so much. And then also it has the point value, so like half points for non-faces, and then, you know, kind of growing points for the face cards. So just super, super, super helpful. And what was great was we actually, a day after the con, I was talking to Sai, and she was saying that she was going to a local game cafe and was going to play some of the games from the con. So jumping ahead, it's going to be a little bit of a non-linear Tarantino storytelling. I went to N Games Cafe, and why I specify N Games Cafe is because, I didn't realize this at the time, but it's the cafe that made Nakosu Dice, which is just top 25 games for me. In fact, we'll be covering it next month in December. But essentially, the cafe was owned by the makers of, or N Games, I think, the makers of Nakosu Dice. And Sai actually did the art on this, and I was so excited I bought a copy there, and she signed it. Oh, just the cutest. But it was so amazing because not only did I get to play tarot when I showed up, there was someone there who spoke French, English, and Japanese. So they were just so amazing. Thank you, Emily, for translating. It was kind of a wild experience to play trick-taking games in Japan and play like fresh new releases that were from that market and learn them like a day or two after. Like the first game we played was the new Taiki Shinzawa, Green Fivura, which I think I have in my backpack. But, sorry, I just came from BGG. But so the game itself was so wild to learn because there were just like terms that made sense across languages, like trompu or like following suit, just like visually made sense. But so we played this game, the Green Fivura by Taiki Shinzawa. Oh, Taiki Shinzawa. And it was so much fun because you could see kind of like, without even knowing the language, my favorite part in like a rules teach, especially like a trick-taking rules teach, where somebody is kind of explaining the rules and everything is kind of normal, like, oh, this suit is trump or it's must follow or whatever it may be. And then once you kind of get to the hook, and once you kind of get to the twist of a trick-taking game, everyone's face kind of like lights up a little bit, or you hear like, oh, around the table. And it was so funny, because I've seen that in English when I've taught trick-taking games or when I learned them, but it was so much fun to see it in like a different language. Just like the Japanese people around the table were just like, oh, like so immediately excited. And to play this like right after buying it from Taiki himself was just like, oh, like a dream come true. If you've watched channel for a bit, or even just like looked at my first videos, just Taiki is a pillar of like game design to me. That's to be able to play his game like right after in Japan, especially after like buying it from him and meeting him, was just like ultimate dream. Especially with Sai, who's just like another like, oh my gosh, just like one of the best artists ever. So I'm gushing and I'm bouncing around. I haven't even told the Taiki story yet, but back to the N Games Cafe. It was so gorgeous. I might have some pictures, but it was like covered in moss and like hanging gardens, and we played Green Fivura, and then when Emily came in, we started playing like tarot, and it was so great because she was showing off kind of a bit of the rule set of like classic French tarot play. So I guess when you play like tarot, I guess French tarot, I'm not 100% familiar with it, but you shuffle the deck once, and it's funny, like mine's actually like not shuffled because we played with Emily's deck, but you shuffle the deck once, and when you deal the cards, you deal 3 by 3. And then why that's important is because afterward, once you like count the score, this is told to me and like from memory, so I might get this wrong, so forgive me if I'm wrong. But so the face cards have like 1.5 points or 2.5 points or 3.5 points, or whatever it may be at the top, right? 4.5 points. And then all the non-face cards, except for Trump, I'm ignoring Trump right now, they have half a point. So it's interesting when you're scoring the cards, you'll count a face card and a non-face card as like 2 points, right? Or like 3 points. You'll like group them like this. Again, this is what was taught to me. And then once you're done counting the cards, all of the good cards and the non-good cards, just through the efforts of scoring, right? Because you have the king and an 8, or like the 10 and a chevalier, or like the jack and the 3. They'll be separated through the scoring. And so then you don't have to score, you just stack the cards and then you redeal in groups of 3. Because then it groups the bad cards with the good cards from the scoring. I hope it made sense. That was how it was explained to me. Much better. But I thought it was a really cool concept. An idea of like a game where you don't shuffle, but it's still naturally, through the scoring process and the dealing, breaks up the good cards and the bad cards. Right. Really clever. We played some tarot, which was fantastic. And then Sai left, and we actually were just, because I had just bought Nakosu dice, we decided to play this. So it's kind of insane to play an endgames game, one of my favorite trick-taking games, in Japan with someone who, French, English, and Japanese, kind of translating like my rules to each from English into Japanese, and then playing it. It was just like a wild, wild, wild experience. Just one of the best international meeting through gameplay, you know, like kind of, although we can't like talk, everyone understands like this rule set and we could play together. It was great. It was kind of like a magical experience. And then to top it all off, we played Mysterium, because it was Halloween night. I went dressed as a cat because, you know, I was in Japan and I didn't know where a costume store was. So costume on a budget. I ran into a 7-Eleven and I got a makeup stick and I just put a little cat nose and some cat lines. What are you gonna do, right? But so we went to Mysterium after, and it was so much fun. It was crazy. I know this isn't trick taking, but like Mysterium is a game where you're trying to like communicate through like images and like feelings and stuff. And I was the ghost, and I was like the only English speaking person besides like Emily, who was like translating. But I was playing like to like 4 or 5 other like Japanese people, just like a person in a suit and like some random like employee and like someone who just like came in on the street who wanted to play games. And it was crazy to like convey meaning through images across languages. Oh, it was so good. And on Halloween of all times. Oh, I'm gushing. And this isn't about trick taking, but like generally to play like games, especially like trick taking games across languages, was just like so much fun. Bouncing around again, the hook to Green Fivura, which I just totally briefly mentioned, is it's a trick taking game where it's a standard kind of deck where it's 1 to 13 in 4 suits, except there's no green 5 in the green suit. There's only a green 0 because on the back of every card is a green 5. That's right. All of your cards can either be what they are, so like a 1 purple, or played flip down as a green 5, which makes sense for the scoring, which I guess I can get into. The premise is if you win a trick, you're going to take the card you won it with, put it on top of the trick, and put it in front of you. So like if I won with a green 7. And then the whole goal is at the end of the hand, you're trying to, in front of you, get as close to 25 as you possibly can. Because if you do, you get points, and if you go over, you lose points, and if someone gets closer to 25 than you do, you don't get as much points. That's kind of the hook. But what was crazy was, while I was packing, I wanted to wear my Taiki Shinzawa sock. I can't find it, but here's a picture right here. I got custom-made Taiki Shinzawa socks with his face on it and hearts on it, which is very creepy. I acknowledge that. And very weird. And extremely creepy and extremely weird to show to someone. But you know, what are you gonna do? Say lovey, win in Tokyo, right? So I went up to the booth the first day, and he wasn't there, and I bought like some of the games. And then the second day I showed up, I decided to wear the sock. And sock, not socks. Because while I was packing, I couldn't find both. So I'm wearing just one of the socks, and I show up and I buy some games. I'm just like, oh, so nice to meet you, and I took this photo. And the whole time I'm like debating, like, do I show him? It's super creepy. Like, this is very, very weird. I don't even know how to like convey, like, hey, it's just like a joke. It's a bit, because I don't know Japanese, you know. But I decided, you know, I'm just gonna go for it. And I put my like foot on a chair, and then I just like pull up my sock, and it was like Taiki and 3 or 4 other people work in the booth, and they were all like, what? They're pretty blown away, I think. I think like a good surprise. I don't know what I was thinking. It was more just like, wow, this guy's kind of a nut job. But then what soothed it over was I went with James Nathan after, who, if you don't know, James Nathan helped bring a ton of Taiki's games, scouting them to board game tables. We've done a video for like Ghost of Christmas or 9 Lives or Big Top. All those are all the new names. But having James, I think it helped cut a little bit of the creepiness. Except, it's pretty creepy, you know? You're at a con and someone comes up with your face on their sock. Just the one sock is a sign of lunacy. But it went over somewhat well, and Taiki was just the best, and it was so great to meet him. It was so great to meet so many other amazing designers. I met Keikajino, who did Scout, and they handed me an Oink newspaper with them winning the Spiel, or getting nominated for the Spiel. And it was also cool because the Oink booth had like designer diaries, which I thought is like such a clever thing to do they have it for like all of their games. And I sadly don't know Japanese, it's all in Japanese. I'm gonna do this so we can kind of read together. But it was cool to see kind of like, you know, influenced by Delt, and kind of the idea behind it, or like a prototype of the deck, right? And I mean, obviously I can just like translate this and read this, but I love designer diaries and kind of seeing how a game becomes made. And it was so cool to find one for Scout, which I think is, you know, kind of like the breakout hit for Japanese card games, and like small card games getting pushed bigger and bigger into mainstream. So that was really fun. I also met Fukutaro, who was so nice. Kindly gave me a copy of his game Defend the Eggs, which was so great. We got to play it at a cafe a couple days after Tokyo Game Market. It was fun because we played with the amazing people behind Trick of Trip, which we covered on the channel, and Fukutaro, who also did Familiar's Trouble, which we covered on the channel, and Idle Hands, which we covered on the channel. So it was great kind of to hang out, and we played a bunch of games where, even though like the teach was a little tough, obviously, because I don't know any Japanese, they knew a bunch of English. It was so nice of them to accommodate me, you know, someone who like goes to a country and doesn't know much of the language, just like the classic oaf American. But afterward we played, which is so great, Fukutaro had to leave, but I played my Of What's Left game, where it's like a shedder where you're trying not to shed, but kind of shed. It was so crazy to convey one of my games through like mostly translation and be able to play it with 2 people who spoke like really good English, but also like it wasn't too hard to get across any language barrier, which was really fun. It was cool to like in a foreign country play one of my games, which was just absolutely wild. I got to meet the wonderful people at Engro Games, who gave me just the nicest, sorry, should be showing you, not me, the nicest new copy of Bug Council of Backyardia, which has all the new components and stuff. I'm gonna film a video for this copy because it has some changes, which is great, or like promos and stuff. But the production itself, I was really looking forward to, because I've again kind of have this listed as the battery cutout, but I just want to say, so nice to see this production copy of just such an amazing game. I'm hoping to do another video for that soon. I also met the amazing Kazuma-san Suzuki, who made Somnia, one of my also top 25 games. It's Mittler Yas, and it was so great to talk to them about their different designs. They have a lot of really cool ones. They made one about COVID vaccines, and they have another one that's like a towering game that I'm hoping to do the video for soon. But they were just so nice. And speaking of nice, oh my gosh, they were co-running a booth with Ayako from Big Cat Games, who was so nice. I'm such a dum-dum. So this is going to be a bit of a long segue, but I got a bunch of cash before I left because I knew game market, cash, much quicker than charging card, especially because Japan as a country is a little bit more cash-oriented than card-oriented. So I got a ton of cash, right? And then, in my infinite wisdom, I split up some of it into my bag and then some of it in a book for some reason. And I didn't remember it was in that book until the end of the trip. Smart. So I went the first day, spent all the money. And then the second day I wake up and I'm like, oh, I don't have any more cash. I don't know where it is. Did I spend that much? You know, I'm like a little like, huh, this is strange. Oh well. So I go down, I try to use both my cards, even though I told my banks that I was going to be traveling. They both were declined. So I was like, oh no, I have no money for games. This is the worst. So I go and I'm just like jaded. I'm walking around like kind of like Arrested Development. And I'm talking to Ayako from Big Cat. And I'm just, oh yeah, I'm just like hanging out. She's like, oh, you're not gonna go buy any more games? Yeah, I don't have any cash. And then she was so nice. Oh my gosh. The nicest person in the entire world. She let me Venmo her for the yen that she had. She was just so nice. And she was able to help me with my cash problem. And I was able to get more games, you know, because that's just what I need. But thank you so much. Yeah, I go, oh my gosh, people are so nice. But also, she was selling Daniel Newman's Reapers, which we also have a video on the channel. I'm saying that a lot. Which I guess sold out like hotcakes, which is awesome to hear. Like, I love that idea of seeing American trick-taking games being very popular at Tokyo Game Market. That's so cool. James, oh my gosh. I think I'd be dead in a ditch if it weren't for James Nathan. And the camera's about to die, so the battery died, sorry. But we were talking about James Nathan, just like, oh, the best person in the world who helped me not only navigate all the booths and know which games to pick up, and would hit me up and be like, oh, there's a trick-taking game over here, or go check out this booth, there's a trick-taking game over there, or go meet this person who designed this, or talk to all these amazing people who were like industry people, which was so fascinating, and coordinated so many different things. Like, I was able to go to dinner the first night of the Tokyo Game Market with Sai, again, just the amazing artist behind so many games, and Trick Kuma, her husband, and someone who helped publish Jekyll vs. Hyde. Video of that is there. Was talking about James Nathan, just the best, nicest, most way more organized than I am person. We were comparing notes, and I think I showed you before, but essentially my notes on what to pick up and how to pick them up was this. And I was running around the con like a chicken with my head cut off. He had like all these spreadsheets of when booths close, when reservations go, like reservation links, and he was just so helpful. And we would always run into each other during the market, and he would help me out. He'd point out where booths were, or like, oh, there was a game over there that was unlisted, and it's just this one that, you know, wasn't talked about much before on Twitter leading up to the market. Go check that one out. Or one time we were just running through and he's like, this one's a social deduction trick taker. This one right here is a game where it's a dexterity game where you are trying not to vomit or something. I think I have that. But essentially, he would just point out all these games. Since I brought it out, James showed me a game where you have like this face and you have your stomach, and this is vomit, and you're trying to only vomit a little bit onto the face, and trying to keep it on the face. You don't want to vomit too much, because these peanuts in here are like your heart and your organs. I don't know how to explain some of the games at Tokyo Game Market. That is just like a perfect example of what some of them were. Or I guess another thing James was super helpful about was he showed me this one game. Oh, there it is. The kind of this whole game section where the premise was kind of unique games with like interesting input, I'd say. One of the games was this Coke game called Jet Cola, where you shake to start a bottle of Coke and kind of like shake weight. If you're catching my drift, you're just shaking it and you're fizzing it up, and then depending on how well you fizz up the Coke, it goes up into the atmosphere. I don't know. Like, okay, other examples of games. There's one game, I'll probably have pictures up here. It was whack-a-mole, but reverse whack-a-mole. So the computer is trying to hit you on the head, and you are the mole putting your head through the hole. Just amazing. Just so good. There was one where it shows you good shapes and bad shapes. Good shapes like people in your family, like your father or your sister or whatever, are bad shapes like demons or monsters or whatever. But why they were shapes is because you had like a screen, like a kind of paper screen door that you would close, and it was a projector where it would shine the shape coming at you, and you'd have to either open it and because it was a good shape, or you would keep it closed because it was a bad shape. So it was like games like that where the input was just strange. But there was like a rhythm fighter where you're putting popsicle sticks into sand, and the sand itself was like the controller. Just wild stuff. Anyway, James showed me all these amazing games. It was actually funny, one of my systems, as if this was anything important, was I would find a game I needed in the hall. This is like a map of the hall. And I'd rip off sections of the map. Oh, I'd rip off sections of the map to let myself know, oh, I don't need to go there again. And so at the end of the day, my map looked like this, which is like the machinations of a madman. But the funniest thing was, James was like, oh, there's this Moncala stock game over on, you know, EA2 or whatever this thing is. And I went to go look at it on my map, but it was ripped off. So I didn't have the most organized Tokyo Game Market, but overall, it was just so much fun. I remember just meeting, again, so many amazing people. When I actually met Fukutaro at the market, I was so excited to meet him because I just love Familiar's Trouble. It was like the game that kind of kickstarted a lot of Japanese trick-taking love and Japanese game design love. I kept saying gotcha, 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 gotcha. I was so excited to be like, yeah, I understand. Like, instead of going like, yeah, I kept saying gotcha, gotcha, gotcha. And it's kind of, I think, a little bit like saying, so in Japanese they say so, which is like, that's right. But I kept saying gotcha so fast that he tweeted out this tweet, which I think is so funny to me. I love the phrase, the mystery of gotcha, because, I mean, even to an English speaker, it was nonsense. But other tales from the trip, I was able to meet up with the designer of Iyadosu. They have this game that's essentially like, it's trick-taking, but you don't know kind of the values of the cards you're playing, because it's like a language kind of interpretation game. And I always love that. My Favorite Things is one of my favorite games, because it's the idea of, it's one of the only trick-taking games where you don't know your rank when you play it. It's kind of like an intuition off of how much you know about the person that you gave the category to. I would also recommend that video. So good. I actually met that designer too at Tokyo Game Market, just very briefly. But it was so crazy just to be... I was hanging out with Saigo, another amazing person, and Leon, another amazing person, who showed off... There's too many stories. Oh, I have too many stories. Leon showed off a couple of cool prototypes, like shitting prototypes, which was fun. It was fun to get a game in. Tokyo Game Market is a convention that doesn't quite have too much gaming really going on. It's more just small tables, or like sometimes bigger tables, in the case of like Itten and Oink, showing off their games. So it was funny because we were just trying to find a place to play these prototypes, and we had to like leave the con and go sit on like a bench outside. We couldn't even find tables at restaurants, but it was great. We sat down and we played some prototypes, which were slick. But rolling way back, way back, Iyadosu, which I'm hoping to do a video for soon. I met the designer, which I hope I'm pronouncing this right, Mashikamaru. So nice, so kind. It was so cool to talk with him. He had amazing English, and I was able to, through Translate and like his amazing English, chat about just the ideas of like game design and like trick-taking game design, and like why he had a certain rule in his game Iyadosu at 3 or 4, you know, and depending on like which player count, which he preferred, just because of the flexibility of, you know, the size of the cards or like the scoring, which is tough to talk about because I don't have a video for it, but hopefully I'll have a video for it soon. I think it's a great game. It's kind of like a little bit of Voodoo Prince. We're trying to go out as late as possible, but the hook to Iyadosu is, after you get your cards, you put a card in the middle, and to the left of it is must follow, and to the right of it is may follow. and also kind of like your bid. It's interesting. But anyway, I was able to talk to him about like game design, and it was really funny because I would use terms like I do on the channel to a fault, where I'll spit out terms, you know, like the lead or trump or must follow or may follow or climbing, shedding, you know, the hammer, you know, just terms that I use so much, but they're in reality they're a little like gatekeepy and, you know, not the best to like bring people into the hobby, or just like not the best to throw around when, you know, if someone doesn't know the term. So we were talking and I was like, oh, a climbing shedding game, and he was like, what? And I was like, oh, like Daifugo or Millionaire or something. And he's like, no, what did you mean? Like, what was the word you used? And I was like, shedding. And he's like, shed? It's like, yeah, to like shed out your cards or something. He's like a shed? And I was like, oh no, not like a shed. Like removing clothes, like to shed. And he's like, oh, okay. Or climbing was an interesting one too. I was like, climbing, like high, like go up. It was just so funny to like break down on a translation level, like the ideas of like all this genre, right? Kind of trick taking or climbing and stuff. And he tweeted about it later, which was cool because there are so many nuances, even in English, describing to someone the difference between a climbing and a shedding game, or like what is like a good example of just a shedding game. I know Adam Board Game in Wales has like a wonderful video that I try to link often that has a breakdown of the differences of trick taking, climbing, and shedding. The really funny thing was, throughout like my research or just like trying to buy games in Japan, I've seen the phrase Torite, which I thought it was like trite or torite, meaning trick, like trick taking and stuff. And I learned while I was there that it means like if you look like trick taking, like to-rig taking, like to-re-te, like taking, torite. It's called torite in Japanese, which I love. Game market is called gema, like gay market, gema. So cool. Loved it. This trip, as opposed to the other ones I've been on, because humble brag, I've been to Japan 3 times before. And this one more so than the other ones, just through like meeting all these like Japanese designers and like going out to dinners and like lunches and just like, chatting with them a lot. I got such a better perspective and a point of view of the culture around Japanese games and stuff. It was really, really interesting. Later on, I met up with Shari and it was so great. We went to like a food hall and we chatted just Tichu for a super long time. It was great to talk to someone who has played Tichu so much and kind of just gotten their perspective on how much that game means and like how that game can make you feel. Shari was telling me about Tichu tournaments that she was in at BGG Con and how she won one against someone who was writing like the strategy guides for Tichu, or like helped bring Tichu to Rio Grande, I think back in the day or something. Just like a big, huge Tichu player who had like all these conventions and stuff, and how nothing else, no other game like Tichu can bring out such an adrenaline rush and some pressure and like anxiety just because you have that like partner aspect and not wanting to let them down. And it was so great to hear from like a competitive side, one of the more intense trick takers I've ever played. I haven't played Tichu at like that level, and it's funny to me because even like just casual Tichu games get me so stressed that I couldn't even imagine what that was like. But it was so great because then later on, Sharon and I played Haggis. I showed her Haggis, which is so great to like have someone who loves Tichu so much play what I think is like the perfect analog for you know, 2-player. And we played it at a cafe that was pretty far from Tokyo. I met back up with Emily, who was the English-French translation person, and we played more tarot, which was great. But also it was so cool to see how even Board Game Cafe is like pretty far away from Tokyo Game Market. When we showed up, had just a ton of the new releases and stuff. Like they had this game, which I've played a few times now. It's like a kind of a worker placement trick-taking game, and it's almost a bit like Niet, if you played Niet, where during the course of the tricks, players are kind of defining what the kind of hand is going to be like. So players are going to be defining like how many points each card is worth, or like what's trump, or what their bid is, or kind of some other various things, but there's like powers too. It was cool to have this also taught in Japanese because it was a pretty complex one, and even with like a complex kind of like, I guess, text reliant trick-taking game, once you like got into the flow, I think trick-taking is so smooth that you can still kind of get over that language barrier, and then we were still able to play like a relatively complex game pretty smoothly. And honestly, again, the kindness of people when we were at that side dinner, Marco gave me and James a push fish game, which just has the most adorable art. But also we played, speaking of adorable art, it was so cool to play at that dinner the new edition of Nana, Christmas Nana, where you, if you play certain cards, you actually pass the hand to the left, which was wild. I thought it'd be a little bit broken, but it worked really well. We just played like one hand, so I'm not 100% sure like kind of the full implications of the gameplay. But it was really great to play Nana with Sai at a dinner. It almost felt like Christmas in a way. And the present was friendship. Also at Tokyo Game Market, I ran into Hiroken, who does Tricktakers, and they gave me these adorable stickers. I feel like everyone there is just the nicest person in the entire world. Oh, and there was also an earthquake. I had my first earthquake, which was great, especially at a board game cafe, because everyone was like holding up the games, you know, loose bits and bobs. Also on Saturday, I ran into someone who watched the channel. They were so nice. I feel so bad because we took a picture and I was saying hello, but then it was like also like right when I landed and I was so flustered, and I tried to be like, hey, I'm sweating and I look like a maniac, and that's why. And also I think I have to run like over to that booth because that booth is gonna sell a game I reserved, but I'm so sorry. But we took a picture, which is great, and it was so nice meeting you. It's kind of crazy like to be across the world and have someone be like, hey Taylor. And then I rounded it out right before I left with kind of a few days for just ice cream and used game shopping and Pokemon loads, which was a hoot. So thank you, Mr. Ben, for that. That was wonderful. So that was it. That was my trip to Japan. Taylor's trip taking you on a tour of Japan. It was so much fun though, to be able to convey to all these Japanese designers that I've just looked up to and played their games and just loved for so long in my limited Japanese and kind of like auto-translated English to Japanese, just that admiration for their games and their design, like, oh, it meant the world. And it was so nice to meet everyone. And again, thank you. Oh my gosh, a billion thank yous to just everyone, especially James, Nathan, and Ayako. Oh my gosh, just the people who, had it not been for them, I think I would have probably not made it to Tokyo Big Sight at all, and I would have just been walking around the Japanese subways for hours on end. But that hopefully was interesting. I think I'll just show off some of the haul maybe and see if any of those games look interesting to you. I could do like a quick 10-second pitch for most of them, but just ask in the comments if any of these kind of 10-second pitches sound interesting. And just there's so many games. I want to say maybe 70, 80 trick-taking games that I got. Maybe that's a little bit much looking at the picture here, but yeah, like if any of them stand out from my like I'm gonna spit 10 seconds of pitch at you, just ask in the comments and I'll give a little bit more details, or maybe if one of them you'd like to see a video on, let me know. But so yeah, the first picture, what I did was I got, my Airbnb had 2 beds, so I kind of split up the first day on one bed and the second day on the other bed. But yeah, in the first bed, it's salty, which I don't know much about. I tried to learn at a game cafe and the person was like, this is kind of complex. But then they taught us this game, the worker placement trick-taking game, which I thought was a little bit complex. So I don't know what's a step up from that, but we did not do that. And then above it's just Tricktakers, handkerchief, and stickers. Pin Combi Trio. Pin Combi Trio, it's a climbing shedding game by Taiki, where the hook is you can play 3 different things. Either a single card, which is just a single card, and you beat it by, sorry, the deck is like 1 to 60 or whatever, or 70 or whatever, depending on the player count. But you can play a single card, or you can play 2 cards, but they have to be a run. so like 65, 66. Or you can play 3 cards where the gap is the same size in between. So I can play a 10, a 20, and a 30 because the gap is 10. Or a 22, 24, 26 because the gap is 2. Wild game. Absolutely wild game. I've only played that once, but again, Taiki Shinzawa, absolute genius. Below it is Kings. That is a bit of a simplified game of Tricktakers, which I still need to cover. Tricktakers video coming soon. Below it is a game that's like trick-taking-ish. It kind of reminds me of Tooth and Claw, like Fukutaro's game, which I don't have a video for that either. But essentially it's like a puzzle game, but you use trick-taking rules. Like you're fighting in these like columns, and you kind of resolve by trick-taking in a way. Kind of a wild one. Wanted Wombat is not a trick-taking game. It's a game where you say an amount and you flip it over, and if you got it right, you get to keep that amount, and you can keep going and push your luck, or you can stop. Woo! Wild game. Triceratops and Conclusion, which I have right here. They are, I think I explained earlier kind of what Conclusion is. Triceratops, I actually don't quite know the hook, but what kills me is the art is almost like like someone is at like a party and they like took a picture of someone, like they're at like a dinosaur party and they took a picture of someone like with flash against the wall. It reminds me of that. Above that is Nana, which I do have a video for on the other channel. Check it out, it's amazing if you like goof 'em ups. To the next is the new edition of Nana, which I talked about, Green Fivura. Absolutely wonderful. I talked about that a little bit earlier, so hopefully you like timestamps. Above that is Odds and Evens. It was a game that Taiki, it's like in Japan, you have like publishing circles, kind of. Circles. It's like kind of groups of friends who just like publish their work. But Taiki usually just publishes his own stuff, but Odds and Ends is by one of his friends. So I don't quite know what it's about, but Taiki likes it enough to publish it. It's good in my book. Planopia is a flick-taking, oh my gosh. I got trick-taking on the brain. It's a flicking game where like there's little magnets where if you flick them, they fly like normal, and then you can flip the piece, and then it's like a stone and like curling or whatever, where it's like kind of stuck in place because there's a magnet on it. Wild, absolutely wild. Majorino 2, which I have next to me. Second floor to one of my favorite games. I have a video for this also on the other channel. Oh, so good. There's a game. Why do I show you this? It's right there. Shark vs. Zombie. Absolutely insane. It came in like a DVD case, and all the marketing was like it was one of those like Sharknado, like disaster movies, trick-taking games. Whew, no clue what that's going to be about. Seesaw was like from last year that I missed out on. I think it's like a 2-player trick-taking game. To the left of it, Open. Oof, I've played Open 5 or 6, no, maybe about 5 times. So good. The premise is it's a shedding game, and it's called Open because your hand is mostly open. You get dealt 6 cards, 4 of them face up, 2 of them face down. Everyone gets that. It's best at 4, so I'll just pretend like that. I'm teaching like that. What you do is you look at your 2 cards, put them back, and you look at everyone's hand, you know, because it's mostly face up. You bet on who you think is going to go out first. If you go out first, you get 4 points. You go out second, you get 2, then 1, then 0. If you bet on who goes out and you're the only one who gets it right, you get 4 points. If you get it right and more people get it right, you get less points. So it's a premise of like, it's a shedding game, but also like a I want to bet who's going to go out game. So you're trying to go out because that's like guarantee points and that's good. But also like maybe you'll pass a little bit to let someone, if you like bet to your left, let them have maybe a little bit easier for time to shed out. Wonderful game. Kind of like a micro-ish game. Does so much with so little. Love it. To the left of it's like social deduction, trick-taking, I think. Below that is Gum. Below that is Burt's Bees. Super below that is the tarot deck that I talked about, which is great. To the right of it's Gardo. It's like a tile-laying abstract game. Above that is a couple trick-taking games that I'm blanking on what it's about. Gadapiche is a game where you have two bags with just different items in them, and you shake them, and you're like, this bag needs a bead, and so you like add a bead to it, and you're like, you're just trying to. It's like a listening game, trying to have the two bags have the same things in them. Wild, absolutely wild. To the left of it is like an ice cream game by Taiki that I think is very language dependent, but what are you gonna do? It's Taiki. We'll try to make it work. And the last one is I'm blanking. I can only retain so much. And then the next picture, the next hall, as you can see, is on the other side of the room, the other bed, because two beds, 2 days. I ended up sleeping on the floor. So sleeping on the floor because games take precedent. On this side, it's a little goofball. Top left, glasses, girls' glasses collection. I'm blanking again. Oh my gosh. Crash Octopus. Flicking game, absolutely wonderful. Make the Difference. Oh, so good. You have two sheets. One of them you made like 5 marks on, and then you blur it up, and then players try to figure out which are the differences. The other ones, there's a stacking game where it's like must follow. It's not like trick taking, but it uses like the idea of must follow in like a dexterity game. That's Underneath the Two Muscle Men. I love that concept. I love seeing like whiffs of trick taking used in other genres, so I was really excited to see how that works out. Of course, to the right there, 3 ambience for friends. What a wonderful world. To the right of that is Mancala stock game. Don't know how it works yet. Gonna be crazy. Below that is this. Oh, this is so strange. So it's like a sheet. It's a 2-player only game where you roll above the sheet like a pencil, and the pencil's like a die. I don't know if you can see it, but the pencil has like swords or like different die faces on it as you roll it, and whatever it lands on, you have to draw on the map that you're rolling the pencil onto. So it's like dexterity, roll and write, kind of 2-player only. It's wild. To the left of that is Fisherman, which is like a simplified version of Niet. Played it a couple times. We're hoping to have like a Niet month coming up, maybe January, February. It'll be shown up on there. Not my favorite. Below that is the Somnia Designer. Had like a COVID hand management game. We're trying to make like COVID vaccines with different ingredients like TNT and water, and wild. It's wild stuff. To the left of that, new edition of Paula, which is super fascinating actually. I was talking to the Iyadosu designer about the Paula, Time Palatrix by Taiki, and as that was a homage to Paula, because I think Paula is like Taiki's favorite trick-taking design. So that's cool. A little fun fact for you. Backyardia with the promos, sensational. Gadget Trick is supposed to be super good. I've heard it's almost like the opposite of The Crew. You have like missions that you're trying to compete competitively, and everyone gets like their own kind of like tool. I think the theme is like you're breaking into a house. I think. No clue. It's wild. We'll see. Tri-T Area is like area control trick taking. We'll see how that goes. Run Milos. Oh man, I'm so sorry. I'm trying to remember all these things. Pita Kakuna is not trick taking. It's like triangle angle game where you're trying to get like the right angle between triangles. It's like angle estimation game. Again, I'm so sorry. Golden Animal. Golden Animal is slick. It's like a bidding game where your hand, you just rearrange your hand with like coins, and how do I describe this? It's like a bidding game with this really cool mechanic where you're like rearranging your hand. I'll probably have a video for it in the future. It's not trick taking, but just such a clever way to handle like bidding and like kind of hand management in a way. And the other ones are trick taking. This isn't useful at this point. My voice is like, I don't know if you can hear it. My voice is losing it. That's the roundup, y'all. So I'll cut it off now. Thank you so much to everyone. James, Ayako, oh my gosh. Sorry, I can't list them all again. Just so many thank yous for just, honestly, the time of my life. I can't believe just like the utter kindness and compassion everyone had. And it was just, oh, I can't express just the gratitude it was to meet everyone. So thank you so much. And next week, we'll talk about BGG Con, which was another just like, what is my life besides just the best people and making me just think humans are just the best. So I'll catch you then, and goodbye in Japanese. Oh, come on. It's not gomen nasai, that's sorry. Arrivederci is Italian. Arigato, nope. Konnichiwa, nope. Sayonara. Sayonara.